welcome to Money and Impact. My name's Suzanne Caldeira. I'm a mortgage lender. I've been in mortgage lending for 24 years. And why the name of the show, Money and Impact? Well, one is I deal with money a lot, trying to help people figure out how to save for a down payment, or maybe do no down payment financing, or what to do for their next house or their refinance. And then an impact is the other name of the show. And the reason for that is throughout the course of my life and career, I've been so lucky to have met people that have impacted me. And those are people that I ask to be on. And today, we're going to touch a little bit upon money and impact with Eric Moyal from Project Insulin. Eric, thanks for being on.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm very excited for this opportunity. It was my first TV interview.
Whoa.
Yeah, so I'm very excited for
I'm
this.
excited to be the first. Come on, TV high five. That's my first TV high five. Well, I will say that I was inspired when I heard your story, and then when you and I had the talk. I want you to share with the viewers why you started Project Insulin and what is it?
Yeah, so Project Insulin is a nonprofit. We're making our own generic insulin, and we're going to sell it directly to patients at cost, regardless of insurance status. So our goal is to ensure that everyone who depends on insulin has access to it. And something that I've learned is diabetes affects everyone. Everyone knows someone that has diabetes, and I started this because someone that I know has diabetes and it affects them. My partner, she has type 1, and she told me about how expensive insulin is and what it currently costs and how long the insulins today have been around for. And that last piece was kind of the key piece. I was like, wait a second, if it's been around for more than 20 years, then it should be off patent and we should be having generics in the market. And so I looked into it, and yeah, they were off patent, but there was no affordable generic solutions. And so to me, I got excited because my background's in fundraising, talking about money. My background's in fundraising, and so this was an opportunity to do something in healthcare and make an impact in healthcare without having to be a scientist. And so it was really like a really cool opportunity to do something in the space that I'm passionate about, for someone I'm passionate about something that affects so many people. And so yeah, that's kind of the short version of the long story of what Project Insulin is and how we got started.
It's a bold move, what you did. And did you know that that once drugs get to a certain point that's when the generics can come in, or was that through research?
Yeah, so I knew generally about patents. Maybe not necessarily about drug patents, but I knew about patents. I had taken some law classes in college, and so I know roughly it's about 30 years. And so you account for about 5 to 10 years of that time to be the development of the drug, or the development of the product. And then the last 20 years is kind of when you sell it and make your money off of the drug or whatever it is you're patenting. And yeah, so I did know about patents generally, not necessarily about drug development patents, but through the research I found out that there are some generic insulins that exist today, but normally generic drugs will bring the price down by 50 to 80%, which is a drastic change in price. But with insulin, the generic prices are only 15% cheaper than the originals. And so something weird is happening in the insulin market that is that we're in this kind of situation. And so it kind of reaffirmed my intuition that there's something going on here.
And how did you go about figuring out, like, I'm going to make insulin?
Yeah, so again, like I said, I'm not a drug development person. I've never done, I took one intro to neuroscience course in college, and it was too hard, so that was the last science course I took in college. But that was the end of my scientific career, so to say. And it's slowly and carefully. It's kind of like when you research anything. So you find out. I learned what insulin is. It's a living organ. So it's not a generic insulin. It's a biosimilar insulin. And that differentiation is because the molecule is extracted from a living organism. And so a generic drug is from something that's not living. Biosimilar drugs are from living organisms. And so, I learned about that, and then I learned more about the drug development process, what it takes to create a drug, what it takes to make it ready to put into humans to test, and then efficacy, and understanding, how much are we, what do we need to prove that this drug works similar to the original product that's already out there. Thankfully, our business model, I'm not going into a lab and doing test tubes and all that stuff. We're going to hire a third party. They will go build it for us. They will do all the testing for us. We just have to pay them. So again, it's like I said earlier, this is an opportunity where fundraising is going to steer us forward. And so as long as I can raise the money, we can hire organizations to do the direct development for us. And so that is kind of the long-term plan.
Yeah, and as you did the research, have you seen that there's any other people that have either done insulin or have done other drugs that are out there?
Yeah, so when you say done, do you mean like other nonprofits working in this kind of space?
Yeah, and as opposed to, taking, which, profit's not a dirty word, but, if you're able to do it at scale and as a nonprofit, you're making an impact.
Right.
But I'm curious on...
Yeah, so there's an organization called Civica RX, and so they're kind of who I got the business model confirmed through. They do generic drugs, so like heart medication, hypertension, all these other generic drugs that either aren't on the market anymore or just reasons for it to not be affordable. And then they create their own, or they buy out the original and then they sell it for affordable prices. So there's them, and then Mark Cuban has his Cost Plus Drugs organization where they're selling their drugs at a 15% overhead, but they're capping it at that 15%. And they're working on the generic side of things as well. So I think it is trending in the right direction.
Yeah.
Like people are starting to think about doing this, but it's a very hard process in the sense that it requires drug development logistics, it requires manufacturing logistics, it requires distribution logistics, and then on top of that, it's like you have to build a company. And then of course there's the fundraising and the fact that you're not going to end up with like a Lamborghini and a yacht and all these other things, but more oriented on helping people. Yeah.
Were you a curious kid growing up?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe a little less curious. I was pretty talkative and inquisitive, but I did spend quite a lot of time just playing video games and sports, and so I don't remember, I don't have memories of doing it, poking a frog or anything like that. But yeah, I think over time, I think my personality is definitely more on the how does that work? Or why does this work the way it does? Yeah.
Do you find that you'll often question things and want to find better ways or not take that question or that answer at face value?
Yeah, I think, interesting. Do I question things? Maybe not I want to understand why. Yeah, so it's not necessarily questioning, it's more of what is why does this work the way it does? I think that would be how I would think about that. Yeah.
And with your fundraising, what have you learned so far in fundraising for this nonprofit that you've created?
Yeah, I think this is a story I've started telling more recently, but I came into this from university fundraising. So I used to work at a university. I would meet with donors, take them out to lunch or dinner, and then they would give me money. And it was, it's not easy, but it wasn't very hard. And the reason it wasn't very hard is because I had marketing teams, I had data teams, I had the connection to the university itself, all making it easier to go and talk to these alumni and be like, hey, we need funding for the women's ice hockey team or for whatever, for the life sciences program. And when I moved to do Project Insulin, I was like, yeah, this will be easy, at the university, you have all the database and everything. And so I started Project Insulin and I'm like, wait, I don't have a database, and wait, I don't have a marketing team, and wait, I don't have grant writers, and we aren't a known entity, and all these other things. And so fundraising has definitely been a slow process, and you build your leads over time. It's like any sales position business. You build your leads, you build your pyramid, you build your pipeline, and you get them down through the funnel. And I'd say it was very slow. Year one we raised $10,000 at 2022, and year two we raised $68,000. So it's a big jump. And then this year we're hoping to close above 200,000.
Wow.
So yeah, it's growing, and it's growing quickly. And I think the reason it's growing quickly is A, I have the background and experience, but B, it's something that people are resonating with. Like, I'm getting live feedback that this is an organization and this is a mission and this is an issue that people really care about and want to see a solution for. Yeah.
Now, with the fundraising, Eric, and building upon that, is there a certain amount of capital that you do need to get up to in order to begin the drug development and go to that stage?
Yeah, so we've raised enough money to start drug development, but the capital needed to get to FDA approval is quite a lot. So we're going to need between $20 to $30 million to get from zero, which is today, the very beginning, all the way through FDA approval of our generic biosimilar insulin. So we need quite a lot of money. Thankfully, it's over a 5 to 7 year time horizon, and it kind of scales over time. Now we only need a couple 100,000. We'll need $1 million next year, but then we'll need 5 million, and then the next year we'll need 10 million. So it really grows and grows quickly. So yeah, I think it's more of the long-term fundraising, which is something we're ramping up to start. Is up till now we've been looking for $25,000, $50,000 grants. We're going to keep looking for those, of course, but now we're asking for $500,000, and we're asking for $1 million. And I didn't know this until recently, but the way you ask and what you present and how you present, it's like a whole different level than when you're asking for $25,000, $50,000, because it's not chump change, of course, 25 and 50,000, but the caliber of, or what is expected from you when you ask for 500,000, $1 million, and anything above that is much higher. And so we're now kind of like adjusting and preparing those documents and preparing to make those asks.
And you had mentioned earlier when we were speaking before we recorded of pitching some ideas, and has that been something that you're doing to fundraise? And if you're able to talk about that, love to have you talk about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done different like incubator and accelerator programs in the entrepreneurship space. So I say these words. Is this like common knowledge? Do people know what an incubator and accelerator is?
I don't. So
oh, okay,
yeah,
great.
Yeah.
Because in my world, right, that's like just the thing we do. So incubators and accelerators are different programs that organizations, like ecosystem organizations, run to help startups get their messaging, sharpen their messaging, sharpen their business plan, sharpen their financial statements, all these other things. And then some of them will culminate with like a pitch contest at the end, and there'll be like a cash prize. And so I've been blessed to be a part of many of these different incubators and accelerator programs, and I've been able to pitch around New England at this point. And I did one national. It was a Zoom, so it was like a little different, but I did a national one. From a success perspective, we won one at Social Enterprise Greenhouse, which is right across the river. We talked about that earlier, for $10,000, which was awesome. And then now they have a second cohort, which I'm working to kind of fine-tune those business plan and executive summaries and stuff for those $500,000 and $1 million proposals. I'm fine-tuning in this accelerator program, and then we have a chance to win $7,500 through this one as well, through a pitch contest at the end.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for someone that may be entrepreneurial or philanthropic with a business with a purpose, is that something that the entrepreneur has to pay for, or is it more a resource that's provided for them?
That's a great question. So it depends on the program. Some of them are free. Some of them there's like a fee. Some will waive their fees depending on the organization and how far along they are through like a scholarship program. And I have not partaken in any that have required for me to pay, and I've really appreciated that. But that is thanks to the generous donations of whoever funds those organizations. Yeah.
Anyone tell you you're crazy to do this?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. I mean, we're trying to make a generic drug, which is going to cost, $20 to $30 million. And it's going to take 5 to 8 years, and you have no experience in life sciences, and that's just you. Like, how are you going to do all these things? And it's like, well, no, like, I'm not saying that I am going to go and make the insulin. Like I made that clear earlier in our conversation, right? I just think that I am stubborn enough to get through this whole process. And to me, the key resource, the key ingredient to it all is funding. It's not, scientific acumen. And I guess this like inquisitiveness, right? Like this willing to learn and understand different things. I kind of took that on when I started Project Insulin because I was curious. I wanted to find out. So yeah, people say I'm crazy. I don't know about crazy. It feels like a weird, adjective. I think I am driven. I think I am stubborn, and I think I am driven by helping and caring for others. And so, yeah.
What are some of the things that you've learned in this process?
Many different things. Being an entrepreneur is not something that I was expecting to do in my life, but it is kind of the best place to learn everything. And so I would say, first I learned how hard it is, right? And just like how long it takes to build something. I say this story quite often, but I have a friend who started a company, and I met him a couple years ago, and since I met him, he's won every pitch contest, every like incubator thing, every accelerator program, and all the grants. And I'm like, what's going on? How are you so good at this? And he told me, he's like, well, I've been working at this for 12 years. Like, yeah, the last 2 years have been really great, but I've been trying to get this off the ground for 12 years. And so that really put it into perspective for me. It's like, it's not overnight, and it's not something that's going to happen quickly. It does take time, and there's like a cheesy quote, like every overnight success stemmed from years of hard work or something like that. I don't know the actual quote, but along those lines. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like it's an idiom because it's so there is so much truth to it, and so yeah, I think that's a big thing. Was learning about just how long it takes to build these organizations and exactly what's needed to do that. But I've also learned just like how passionate and caring and motivated people are. It's really cool to be in a space where everyone's kind of driven and passionate about what they're working on. And even, the other end is like the people who support us. The incubator programs, the accelerator programs, our donors, our volunteers, our advisors and mentors, and all these other people who, met me, were piqued at least by what I'm doing, and we're like, yeah, we'll take a chance. Like, we'll help you, and we'll give you resources, and we'll give you our time, and we'll help you. We'll make introductions and all these different things, and it's. To me, that's one of the more special pieces, and just learning that that's all available. And it's not like openly available, but people want to help, and I think that's a very powerful thing, and something that's really helped me keep going and staying focused on the mission.
I think it's your mindset, and it's coming through and it's shining through. I'm curious, you must have had those dark moments or moments of doubt. How have you dealt with those?
So this isn't a moment of doubt. This is just like this is a dark moment, and it happened 2 days ago, Monday. Okay. It happened on Monday. We are currently trying to begin drug development, and so we have a master service agreement, is what it's called, and it's between us and the drug developer. And once we sign this document, we can get started. And so it's like this monumental opportunity is like on the other end of this document, but to do our due diligence, we want like a life sciences lawyer to look it over, pick it apart, make sure that we're protected and there's nothing in it that's bad. And so I got an introduction to a lawyer really well-regarded, like top-tier lawyer. And so she was like, yeah, I'm retired, but I can introduce you to the head of one of the largest firms in New England. And so I was like, oh man, this is just like a small document, but sure, would love that. And so she's like, can you send me your slide deck and your business plan? And so I gave it to her, and she's like, can we meet? I'm confused. And I was like, oh no, like what did I do wrong? Like I thought this was good. I was excited. And so we met, and she spent an hour on Monday just telling me how, this isn't ready, and this is bad, and this isn't good, and this is right, and like all these different things. And I took it, in the past, I would have taken it really, really personally.
Yeah.
And I think like early on when you start a company, it's your baby. It's like it's your thing, and someone is trying to rip it apart. And so in the past, I would have been really insecure about that. Today, I'm still insecure about it, but I understand, I can separate my emotions versus like the reality. And so I was like, honestly, I really appreciate you ripping this apart. This is kind of a wake-up call that we need to level up our materials and kind of change the story that we're telling and making it more about what we're doing and why you should be confident in us, and less about like the origin story and why it's cool that we're doing this, and really kind of exude confidence in the actual work and not in the like idea and the mission. And so it's like it's still hard to hear because I mean, former lawyer, like very, very much like ripped me apart like methodically, and it was super helpful. But that's an example. But I think a more salient example of a dark time is early on, a lot of the feedback I would get is, why are you a nonprofit? Why aren't you a for-profit company selling at a lower price but not selling it at cost, right? You could make money, you can get investment money and all these other things. And that really hurt because it meant that the people I was talking to didn't understand like the essence of the business. And like, our goal is to ensure everyone has access to affordable insulin. Under the for-profit model, you are obligated to, you have a fiduciary duty to your shareholders, to your funders, your investors. As a nonprofit, we have a fiduciary duty to ensure that people get affordable and accessible insulin. And so I just couldn't articulate that well.
Yeah.
And I was also meeting people who like didn't want to hear that, who don't think entrepreneurship is the space for nonprofits. And so it was kind of like a weird, early on it was very weird because I'm doing entrepreneurship things, but we're a nonprofit. And so there's a lot of like imposter syndrome. There's a lot of frustration with others not understanding what we're doing. I felt like an artist being like, oh, you just don't get it,
Yeah.
And it took a while to understand that not everyone has to get it. Like it's okay for someone to not be interested in nonprofits and helping people without making a fortune. That's fine. But on top of that, like, it took time to recognize that I need to tell this better, right? Kind of like this lady on Monday. It's like, you need to tell this different now.
Yeah.
Like, you've learned how to tell that story well, and you're good at that. But now you need to tell a different story because now you're at a new stage, and things need to evolve. So yeah, I think that was something that was very hard early on. And then I think lastly, the loneliness of being a founder, especially when you're doing this by yourself. It's very hard. All the critiques, all the feedback, all the rejection. The only person that falls on is you. And so it's like, am I a failure? Am I being rejected? Is my idea silly? Like, am I doing the wrong thing? And it's like, no. It's like, take a step back. Like, you weren't ready for this opportunity, or you didn't convey it properly, or things like, right? And so it's just understanding. It's shifting the mindset. Yeah.
And do you have a sense of how many people are at risk for either not getting enough insulin or not having the access to it, as far as from a cost perspective?
Yeah. So currently, or in 2022, I'll give the dates, but in 2022, 1.3 million Americans rationed their monthly insulin supply. So what that means is that in a month, 1.3 million, at some point in a month in 2022, 1.3 million Americans chose not to give themselves insulin in an instance when they needed it because they were running low on insulin and could not afford another vial. And that leads to like incredible complications in the long run. But what's deceiving about that stat is that it's 1.3 million who ended up rationing. This doesn't include the, potentially 500,000, 1 million people, maybe even more, who chose to give up healthy eating, education, travel, whatever, switching jobs, all these other pieces in order to afford their insulin. So they gave something up in order to afford it, and neither of those scenarios, rationing or giving something up, to me is acceptable. Like, healthcare should be a human right. When I first started pitching Project Insulin, I would say, like, raise your hand if you drink water, and everyone would raise their hand. And so I would say, for people with insulin-dependent diabetes, access to insulin is as important as access to water. But people are paying up to $300 per vial per month on a vial of insulin, or for their insulin. Could you imagine spending that much money on a glass of water? And so that's kind of how I related it to people at the beginning. Yeah. So that's kind of the populations that need us the most, right? Like the insulin-dependent population in the U.S. is 8.4 million, and that is projected to double in the next 20 years. Diabetes affects close to 100 million people in the United States, close to 1 billion people worldwide, and there are countries around the world who don't even have access to any insulin. So if you get diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, or if you get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, or your type 2 diabetes progresses far enough, you're just kind of like stuck. Like there's nothing for you to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Eric, I gotta say, thank you so much for being on. And for more info on today's guests, please watch the credits for my email and also for my YouTube for show replays. And this is Money and Impact, and I'm Suzanne Caldeira. Thanks.